Hey, welcome back, guys. Thanks for watching this video. So in this video we're going to discuss how to identify a good deal. Now, a good deal could mean different things for different investors depending who you are and what you're looking for from that particular deal, right? Whether you're looking for more of an equity play where you're going to make money on the back end when you sell the property, or whether you're in it for the cash flow, right? And preferably you would have a deal that does both, right? Positive cash flow and has enough equity to make money on the back end. So without further ado, let's dive in deeper and compare the two options. So like I said before, the difference between a deal that has a positive cash flow versus a deal that you're doing because of the equity, or you're assuming that this property is going to increase in value by the time you sell it, that it's worth it. That's the difference, right? If you're going into a deal hoping that, or knowing that it's cash flowing, has a positive cash flow or good enough cash flow that it makes sense, versus buying the deal because of the equity play, hoping that the value will go up enough that it makes sense for you as an investor to buy it and then sell it at the end. So what is the cash flow? Cash flow basically means once you have bought the property, how much money are you making after paying off all your expenses at the end of the month? Whatever you're left off with, that's the cash flow. That's basically your net profit. And the equity is essentially the money, that the difference between how much you paid for the property versus how much it is valued today. So depending on how much it increases in value or how much lower you bought it to its value, that's your equity. So how do you determine the cash flow on the deal, right? And how do you know whether it's a good deal or not based on the cash flow? Now, there's different methods that people utilize in this. Some people call it the 1% rule. Basically, if you take the purchase price, if you're purchasing the house for $100,000 and you take 1% of that, which is $1,000, and if you can rent out that property for $1,000, which is the 1% of the purchase price, then it's a good deal, right? Anything above 1% makes it a good deal. There's other ways also to determine the cash flow and see if it's a good deal. Like I said before, cash flow is essentially what is left after you pay your expenses after every month, right? So you take your the rent that you receive from the property, let's say it's $1,000, minus the expenses, the mortgage, repair costs, everything that goes into your expense, and what you're left off with is your cash flow. So on the example of a $1,000 rent property, if your mortgage is $600 and you spend $100 for property management and repairs, then you're spending about $700 a month on expenses. So your cash flow would be $300 on that particular example. So $300 positive cash flow is a good deal, depending again if that makes sense for you and in that particular deal. But essentially, that is how you calculate a cash flow. Again, there's different ways of determining if it's a good enough deal. The rule of thumb some people use is 1%, the 1% rule. The other rule that you can utilize is if a deal is making you at least $300 a month per unit, after paying all your expenses and cash flow, essentially $300 in cash flow, then it is a good deal, good enough deal to purchase. And this is just looking at it from a cash flow perspective, right? Now on the flip side, if you're looking at it from an equity play perspective, then you could go into a deal that either has zero cash flow or negative cash flow, because your goal is to make money when you sell the property at the end, right? So using that $100,000 property, for example, you're buying it for $100,000, but let's say the rent that you're getting is $500 a month, just to use that as an example. But well, you know that your mortgage alone is going to be $600 plus your expenses for property management and repairs and additional expenses going to be $100, so $700. Subtracted from 500 is negative 200. So this deal that we're using as an example, you have a negative cash flow of $200. Now, why would you do that deal? If the deal that you're purchasing for 100,000 is either worth 120, 130,000 that you could sell, down the line, or that the properties in that area are appreciating at a significant rate, and that you're expecting it to go up significantly within 6 months to a year. And you have to make sure that you build in enough cushion to cover the negative cash flow while you keep the property, right? And then when you finally sell it, then that's when you make your money, right? So this is more of an equity play versus a cash flow play. But like I said before, it's more important to have a deal that has both positive cash flow plus equity. And most of the time, deals that have a positive cash flow are more likely to have equity in them, right? So they go hand in hand. But there are instances where you could have a property that has significant equity but not enough rent, and those typically tend to be properties that are the big ticket properties, $500,000, $700,000 properties. All right, guys, so that is the difference. Those are the two ways that you can look at a deal to assess whether it makes sense for you, in the long run, from a cash flow versus an equity play perspective. Now, there are other factors that you need to take into account when purchasing a deal. Like I said, typically a house, the rule of thumb that you want to utilize is a house that can make money every month, in this case has a positive cash flow, should have enough equity when you sell it as well. So you have to make sure that it is beneficial in both ways. Sometimes that doesn't always work out, right? You can purchase a property for exactly the value, so you don't have enough equity in there, and you buy it for with an FHA or a 3% down mortgage, and so you have very little equity in the deal, but the rents in that area are high, so you are positive cash flowing a good enough amount of money. So that deal makes sense, right? Because you know that you're going to pay down the mortgage as time goes on with the rent payments, and you're making money every month, and you know that value of the property will continue to increase. So you have to do your due diligence in assessing the environment, the area that you're purchasing the property, how much the rent comps are, and assessing what is the historical property value increase. All right. With that being said, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. Until next time, take care.